Hey, so we just wrapped up filming the episode with Erik Cabral from Onair Brands. Corey, what'd you think?
Great podcast, great content, great guests.
That's it. Have it. Enjoy. No, just kidding. No, seriously though, there was a lot of really interesting concepts that he talked about, and a lot of actionable things that you could do to sort of develop your personal brand.
And it's one of the necessary things you kind of have to do to take your business to the next level. I mean, like most things, you're only gonna get so far, so you're only gonna get so far by yourself before you have to start hiring a team. As far as in the fix and flip business that we see, you can only get so far with your own money until you just have to start using financing and so on. So it's like you only get so far without your personal brand, and then you got to really take your business to the next level. That's what you need.
Yeah, and in today's world with social media, you have to be out there. This is not like an optional thing. I mean, everybody does some form of personal branding. Most people are operating at like 5% efficiency though. And he talks about some ways to kind of take it to not the next level, but just really blow it out of the park. And he was telling us about a client of his who is now filling a 2,000 seat arena for a 2,000 seat ballroom for a conference. So, not that everyone needs to go to that level, but in terms of publishing content, podcasting, getting attention, these are all great things that we need to be doing. And he kind of gives us some really good tips for how to get going with it.
All right, so enjoy the show.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the First Equity Funding Real Estate Podcast, where we interview the most interesting people both in and out of the real estate space. And today we have a special guest. We have Erik Cabral. Erik, welcome. How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Yeah, so we got introduced a while back at some networking events, and Corey here has known you for quite a while, and you seem to be everywhere, and that's kind of the subject of what we're going to talk about today on the topic of personal branding. But can you give the people listening a little bit about your background and what you're currently focused on?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll try to keep it short. So my background is in creative. I've been in the creative industry for over 20 years, and I recently, over a couple 2-3 years ago, I got laid off of a really nice job where I was heading up teams and building teams and growing an internal creative agency within big pharma. And I was going through the motions of just putting my resume together and started to realize, wow, I could actually build a company, based off what I have here on my resume, and I'm building it for someone else. So I realized, let me see what else I could do. What's the next chapter in my life? So I picked up the Robert Kiyosaki Rich Dad book, which is the purple pill for most real estate investors. And my ultimate goal was not to start a creative agency. It was to just try something new, something different. For two decades, doing creative, I was a little bit bored with it. So I started to get into real estate investing, educating myself, surrounding myself with like-minded people and people just crushing it in the real estate industry. I went in with the idea that I was going to flip like most people. I'm going to, maybe I do wholesale, maybe I should do flipping. And as I realized getting into it, that's a job, right? It was really tough. But I had systems and teams in place. It took me about a year. And then I picked up a multifamily, and I got once you get your first deal, the confidence just skyrockets, right? So I got so confident that I could do more. And during that time, as I was building my brand, my real estate investing company, Mandato Investment Group, I got into personal branding, really with the goal to raise the visibility of Mandato Investment Group. So I started to do a lot of content, started following, people that were in my circle like Matt Faircloth, and, just providing value on my channel on YouTube. And I started to get some traction and a lot of just awareness and getting into a space where, yes, I was a marketing and branding guy in the past, but in today's landscape, it was slightly different, right? So, following the Gary Vee model, I started to document the journey. And as I start to document the journey, you'll actually, if you go to Mandato Investment Group on YouTube, you'll see all of my real estate content. And then all of a sudden you see me getting into personal branding, and then it just stops because now Onair Brands was birthed, my creative agency, my personal branding started to kick off. That's when I decided to just really focus on personal brand. And now all the other channels started to just, flourish and with content and my, just my visibility. And like you said, just me being everywhere. So that's it in a nutshell. That's where we are now. I had to create a creative agency out of necessity, because the real estate investing community um, was asking for it. They had a big appetite for what I was doing as far as branding and creating logos and websites. So I had to start hiring people and building a company based out of necessity. So that's where we are. And the way we met, and especially with Corey and I see each other every month at one of our major networking events called SJ South Jersey Real Estate Investors Association here in Central and South Jersey. My business partner and I head up the Princeton main meeting, and we have 800, closer to 900 members in total. And that event in Princeton pulls in about 50 to 100, right, Corey? I'd say sometimes over 100. I think next month we're going to have over 100 people attending that at the Hyatt Regency in Princeton. And that was where I really cut my teeth on growing a personal brand and podcasting and raising brand awareness and visibility. Yeah.
So a lot of people, including real estate investors in particular, they've heard these terms, personal branding and things like that, and they know it's important. But I don't think they necessarily know why it's important. Why does somebody who's in the real estate space, or any entrepreneur for that matter, why do you need a personal brand?
Yeah. So for me and for most business owners, people will only do business with those they know, like, and trust, right? So if people, number one, don't know who you are, how are they going to second trust you? And then how are they going to give you their business, right? So how that's step number one. So if you're a business owner or a real estate investor, which is a business, you have to raise your visibility. Real estate agents understand this best, right? They put their photos on their business cards. They market the heck out of themselves. It's essential to growing your business and your business relationships, because if people don't know who you are, and then they don't know how to get to you, and they don't know what it is you do, how do we expect to have a business? So I constantly push the community and the people in my circle to provide value and to keep pushing out content, because you are an expert in something, right? You have a superpower in something, and you have to harness that power to help others. And when people realize that you can help them, they want you in their life. All right. Mm-hmm. So that is a major mantra of mine. And something that I'm always telling people to be constantly aware of is your personal brand, which is you. You walking into a room, what is the frequency that you're vibing at? What are you putting out there, for people in the room when they see you? Are you a low energy person? Are you a high energy person? Are you someone that is influential? How do you come across? Be very self-aware of yourself, so that you know how to have that conversation when you're shaking someone's hand.
So it's more than just social media and having a website, you're saying?
Absolutely. Those are tools, right? For me, it's all about the long game, and strategies and long-term strategies. So there are strategies, right? High concept sort of ideas. And then there's tactics, tools, like things like Facebook and YouTube. Those are just tools that we use. But what is the strategy at a 10,000 foot level to leverage those tools so that you can get the best out of them?
I mean, it sounds like as much as it is websites and graphics and social media, it's more of a mindset shift in terms of, you wanting to get yourself out there. I mean, we're both fans of Grant Cardone, and one thing he always talks about is best known beats best, right? Yeah. So it doesn't matter how good you are. If you're in obscurity, you're at zero.
Exactly. So, I mean, there's a lot to it. Mindset obviously is something. There's so many pieces to the puzzle that has to be put together. But if you do really, really well in a certain, niche, focus on that, and then figure out what are the pieces that I need to put together so that works at its optimal, performance.
So, I mean, maybe someone that's just kind of new to the concept of personal branding. I mean, where do you start? I mean, obviously with the mindset shift and
yeah. So the mindset shift is key, right? Number one, you have to fix, what is your paradigm? What are your core beliefs and your core values? So once you get that as part of your DNA, you will come off as authentic and genuine when you start to talk to people and you know what you're talking about. You truly are there to help somebody. And it's not about you know. I often, you know, because Cory, you know, you see, we constantly talking to people, hundreds of people all the time, shaking hands. And the ones I feel and vibe with the best are the ones that I realize they want to help, right? It's not about them, and they focus on what it is that they do really well and how they can insert themselves into your lives to help you, and then to ultimately help themselves. But yeah, so that's something that I highly recommend people get that mind shift set, that you are really this person with massive value that can help people. Know know what it is you do, and then focus on that. And then when you do that, figure out what it is that's unique about you that will help you stand out in the industry. You know, so I'm really good at, closing leads. So maybe you could start something like that. Maybe you're the real estate agent, or, you know, you're somebody that can help people and strategize how to best close a lead. You know, there are things that, or I'm the best at, you know, building networks. So then maybe you should start a meetup. You know, I love shaking hands and meeting people, you know, but I'm not the best at organizing it. So then you get a partner that's good at that stuff. So I highly also recommend finding someone in your circle that you can partner with that leverages the things that they're good at what you're not good at. Right.
Sure.
But then that circles back to being very self-aware. So how can you find someone to plug in your weaknesses if you're not aware of your weaknesses?
And you have to be very honest with yourself, because we're not all good at everything. And
Right.
we all do have something that we shine at. And one thing you touched on that I thought was really important was the idea of genuinely wanting to help people. And I've seen that in our business time and time again. When you actually help somebody, and in our case, it's real estate, but it could be whatever your business is. When you actually help somebody go through the process and give them content for free, you put stuff out there because you genuinely want to help people, it seems to come back fivefold.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I don't know if that's just the law of the universe, but that's the way it works. It really is.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is, a lot of people, especially newer investors, and I was one of them, you know, you come into the room and you realize, you know, okay, I'm here to make money, right? That's why I got into investing. Yes, ultimately, you know, we need to put food on the table for our families. But what you will begin to realize in the long term, and if you're in it for the long term and long game, is that offering yourself up, whether it's, you know, your time and your energy to help people, will, like you said, Anthony, just pay off in dividends over the long tail. So when I realized that and I implemented that, man, my whole world changed. So just a quick example, when I got into real estate and I jumped into Bigger Pockets, right? We all know Bigger Pockets. And I knew I had to network. My business partner now, Justin, said, hey, come out to this meeting. It's called SJ RIA. So I showed up to one of the meetings he was heading up out in New Brunswick, New Jersey. And it was a small group, 15, 20, maybe 30 people. And I was just absorbing as much as I can. I didn't care what the topic was. You know, I think it was like subject to, you know, some high level concept. And
Yeah.
then I was there to network. So I sat right next to him at his table. And I just had conversations, you know, throughout the 2-3 hours of networking. And then when it was over, I didn't just leave. I stayed. I helped break everything down. Here I am. I'm in my 40s. I'm not a kid that's hungry. You know, I'm in my 40s and I'm hungry. And I'm like, what can I do to help you? Let me break things down. Let me put everything in your truck. And I kept showing up every single meeting. And I did the same thing. And he realized, wait, this is a guy I can confidently and trust in, you know, showing up and helping me and be reliable. So that's another thing that I would recommend people who are starting businesses, or people who are in a business, but, you know, are kind of flat, right? They don't see growth. You know, just showing up and helping and putting that little extra, like I have a coach that he's always saying, be 1% better than the rest. Just 1%, like saying someone's name correctly or writing someone's email in spelling their name correct. You know, how many people write me an email that says ERIC? You know, it's like just those little details, you know, be 1% better. And then eventually you could start to stand out from the crowd if you consistently are that much better.
That pairs perfectly with a point I wanted to make, which was, and I this is something I struggled with a few years ago, and it's that when you're newer in any business, you feel like you don't have any value to give. And that couldn't be any further from the truth. And not only what you just said, where just showing up on time, being consistent, being punctual, and all those things those are free, right? And anybody can do those. But
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs like us, we tend to always look up, right? So when I think about real estate, I'm looking at Grant Cardone, I'm looking at Robert Kiyosaki, and I'm like, well, I'm not those guys. What value can I provide? But sometimes you have to remember that there's guys who are on a couple rungs of the ladder lower than you. They're just getting started. And I've noticed this at meetups where they're asking me because I said something that piqued their interest. They're asking me for help. And then it really made it click in my head that no matter where you are on your journey, you always have something to provide to somebody else. So it goes back to mindset again, but you have to really understand that you do provide unique value, and you have to be confident about that.
And even what you said, even if it's carrying stuff to the truck, you almost provide so much value, you almost become necessary in a sense.
Yeah, 100%, and just showing up, not just on time, but even early, it speaks volumes that I see Cory there, half hour before the meeting starts, so on a subconscious level, I'm thinking, okay, I want to do business with this guy eventually. Right. And that's what we're doing. We're doing business together, right? We're closing deals. We're buying properties together. It's something that's necessary, but people don't realize, and they don't think about the long game in anything and everything in life. Right. It's not even just in business. It's like a personal level where, say your husband or wife says, oh, there's this barbecue, it's a coworkers event, and then you don't feel like going, but there's a reason, right? There's something that could happen there. There could be that person, your next partner, your next client. There could be somebody there that you're going to shake hands with and vibe with. So it's like just putting yourself out there and always, like you said, Anthony, having that positive mindset and knowing that, wherever you go, always present yourself in a way that you want to help people and be genuine about it. If you're really all for yourself, people are going to find that out pretty quickly.
There's a story I always tell Cory about someone I know in real estate. He's sold more apartment buildings in New Jersey than any other broker ever, Jeff Weiner. And I always tell Cory stories about how he meets people in the most random places. I mean, it might be at a urinal in a bathroom or something really funny or strange, or at a restaurant, or just in the strangest places, because he does what we're talking about. He's always kind of switched on, where he's ready to network, ready to meet. He puts forward an attitude that's very welcoming, and he's a go-getter. And he's half retired now, but this was for years and years and years he did this. And it's you hear tons of these stories, and that's exactly what you're talking about. You have to have that mindset and always put that good energy out there, and what comes back is really amazing.
Yeah.
It's funny though, you mentioned just showing up, because actually the most recent SJ event out in Cherry Hill, I ended up being a good 15 minutes late, which isn't a huge deal, but it was to the point I hit so much traffic where it was almost to the point you almost contemplated turning around. But obviously you don't, you just show up, like you said. And actually I had a conversation that, I won't say a career shifting, but a couple of big conversations came out of that day, just actually being there late actually kind of helped. So the biggest takeaway, I think what you said was just show up, late, early, whatever it is, obviously be early, but just show up, just show up, keep showing up at the same places.
Right.
I think that ties into actually building your brand, being everywhere all the time.
And it also helps with the trust, right? So if you're there every single time, you form relationships and you build trust with people, because they see you, they know you, they realize you're not going anywhere. You're consistently here. I'm beginning to know and learn about your story and your family. And like I said before, people want to work with people they know, like, and trust. So how do you build that trust? It's consistency. It's showing up. It's networking. It's, genuinely showing interest in their life and their goals. So like, be a good listener. That's a key to my success whenever I talk to people. And that's why I have a, relatively successful podcast and shows, is I love to listen to people, and I love to dissect and distill what it is they're saying into one or two main pain points that can help them. And then they don't even realize that they're just talking. And then like you offer a solution, like, holy crap, that's it. All this time I didn't even realize, but they just thought they were talking to you, but you were really genuinely listening.
And just to tie this into real estate a little bit, one of the paradigm shifts that I had was when I first got into the hard money business, I thought to be the best lender, I needed to know my products inside and out. I needed to know everything about this industry. And really, what I've found for my best borrowers, my guys who do 10, 20 deals a year, is the reason they want to work with me is not because I know everything inside and out and I have adequate knowledge of the business, but it's because I do the little things that we said are free. I pick up the phone when they call. I always get back to them. I do what I say I'm going to do. And this is their feedback to me. So, you don't need to be the expert in terms of all the knowledge. It's just about being consistent and showing up. And it's one thing when you say it, but I've actually seen it in my own business. It's a powerful concept.
Yeah. So perfect example of this. I spoke to several lenders, right, for this property that I'm, working on you guys with. And I want to work with you guys because Cory shows up. I know Cory really well. And I know that and trust that he will close and help me close this deal. So it's funny because the other guys I don't know as well. Right? Maybe I've known them for a couple months. Maybe I just met them. Maybe I've never even met them or shook their hands face to face. So, and here's the funny thing is I'll pay a little extra, right? All day long, I will pay extra to work with someone I know, like, and trust.
How much extra?
But yeah, it goes to show that people, they would rather know that they're in good hands, and pay that little extra. Why do people spend tons of money on Apple products? Or why do people go to that expensive restaurant? Because they know they'll be taken care of. They know it's a feeling. It's an experience that you're paying for. It's not about, saving $1, saving $100 here and there. It's all about the experience and what it is that you give your clients through that journey, from initial contact to closing the deal. So you have to think about your client's perspective on how they experience the journey throughout your company.
And we ask those questions too. When somebody calls us and they're inquiring about financing for a property and they start asking, what's your rates? I usually, the first thing I say is you're asking the wrong questions. Obviously those are important things, but the question you should be asking is, what's your process? Can you get my loan closed? Like, how do you work? Why you as opposed to another company? And the more experienced borrowers, they do ask those questions, right? Somebody will call me and say, I need to close this loan next week. Can you get it done? They're not asking me about what's your interest rate, because that's like sixth on the list of most important items.
Mm-hmm.
So once you understand that, it really takes your business to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was in that boat when I first got into real estate investing. I was going to the lowest bidder. But like you said, can they close the deal? Is this a clean process and system that I will have a great experience, going through? These are things that I guess, like you said, over time, as you become more seasoned as an investor, you'll realize the important things, and it's the things that we're talking about.
I've heard Cory actually on the phone with the borrower saying, I would not do that deal. Somebody proposes a deal to him, they want to submit an application. Cory tells him to shy away from it.
Yeah.
Just because that's the right thing to do. And that's, the reputation is the most important, right? I don't want to force someone into a deal and that they're not going to be successful in. Yeah. And so we try to take that stand. So let's tie this in a little bit. So can you tell us a little bit about how the personal branding stuff has helped or affected your real estate investing or your real estate career?
Oh man. I don't know where to start on that one, to be honest, Anthony. It started with Mandato Investment Group and offering value, right? I still, to this day, even though I don't contribute to that channel as much anymore, I still get people contacting me because of the value that I provided on that channel, reaching out saying, hey, I love those 10 tips. Can you share them with me? How can I take you out for a cup of coffee? It doesn't end. So when you do social media, think of it as what we call in the industry evergreen content, right? So evergreen, like the trees, it's always in season, right? it never dies. It's always flourishing. So that's what you want to do. First and foremost, if your company or even if you're just a solopreneur without teams in place, you want to put out something that will always represent you, no matter what the season. That's what I started with. And then, I started to just try it. Like I said, showed up to every and any networking event that I thought I could help and provide value to that audience. then you can, let's see, I'm trying to think how to title in, because how it helped me is just, there's so many doors of opportunity that opened as I started to put myself out there. Because as people start to see you and gain more awareness of you, you're already establishing the trust, the know, like, and trust that I keep, threading throughout this conversation. So you already did the hard work. If you put yourself out there on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, and I don't say you have to do all of them, because it's really hard to try to concentrate on all of them. I always tell people to concentrate on one and be really, really good at one, whether it's Facebook or Instagram. So then when you start to establish yourself, and that takes some time, it could take 6 months, it could take a year, but be consistent with it. People will start to notice you. People will start to ask you what it is you do, and they'll be curious, and then they'll start to trust you subconsciously, because they know that you're putting yourself out there and you're giving stuff for free.
Can you talk about that a little bit more? Because I've struggled with this in the past, where I've put out good content before, but it's been kind of sporadic, right? I would be really good for 6 weeks, and then I'd get busy, and I didn't do it for a couple of weeks, and I get back on it. Can you just talk about the importance of the consistency?
The importance of the consistency. So if you do 6 weeks consistently, and then you drop off for another 6 weeks, what happens in the algorithms, or what happens to the social media, is your stuff gets buried to a degree, right? They like consistency, and they especially like it if you put up the content natively, meaning like, don't take a video on YouTube and share it on Facebook. Facebook doesn't like that. They won't help you promote that. Put the content directly onto Facebook, right? So
that's a great tip.
So you do that with especially Facebook Live. So if you do Facebook Live, Facebook pushes that to the top, right? And they want people to see you using that tool. So when you start to do that consistently, and I say this, Anthony, take half an hour to an hour and plot what it is you want to talk about over the course of 3 months or 2 months. And you don't have to have fresh new content constantly. You can rehash what it is you said, or even share what it is you said 3 months ago or 3 weeks ago, right? Just reshare and say, hey, if you missed this a couple weeks ago, here it is again, if you think you're going to miss it. Facebook has tools in place for you to schedule posts. So you can create content on the back end and start to schedule it out, every Monday, every Tuesday. So that it's a system. So you want to create a system for yourself so that the consistency is somewhat of an easier lift for you, but what you have to do is schedule it out, on paper first, and then create the content, and then start to push it out.
I'm assuming one of the big pushbacks from a lot of either new entrepreneurs or maybe younger people is that they don't have content. And one thing you said earlier that I love is document the journey. I think there's something so honest and genuine about like the grind and you starting out and you going through the process. I mean, does that make for good content?
Oh man. Yeah, absolutely. So if you go back to my original journey, when I first started in Mendato Investment Group on YouTube, it's you see me, like, I didn't have my own deals, but I had a network that I was building. So what I would do is I'd show up to friends and networks, what they were working on, and they weren't doing social media, so it was helping them. So I would come in as, Erik from the Mendato Investment Group here at my buddy Peter's, flip or his Renault, and even my own project. I had a project going on in my house. I documented it and I put it out on Facebook, and people started to see me in a different light rather than this creative director in big pharma. Oh, look, Erik looks like he's flipping. Even though I wasn't in the game yet. I was just learning and just starting out. I started to align myself with people who were doing it and documenting their journey as well. And it just took off, and then eventually I got my own deal and I started documenting that. So yeah, there's a way there for people who are just starting out to put yourself around people who are doing it and say, hey, can I come and check out what you're doing? And do you mind if I document it?
And as silly as it sounds, I mean, it almost kind of holds you accountable too. Because now you can not only fail for yourself and your family. Now you kind of have an audience. You got people, maybe cheering you on, maybe not.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I mean, now you're putting yourself out there, like you said.
Absolutely. Yep. And it gives you content. You got to be creative and figure out how do I create content and how do I offer value to people Well, I'll just show them what it is I'm doing and then have a conversation with the guy who's been doing it for much longer than I have. And then the majority of the people who are watching, don't do what we're doing. So
Mhm.
they're gonna get some value out of it. And you may inspire somebody who's in a similar situation as you are, and wants to go there and wants to get to where you are doing, just like you were saying earlier, Anthony, that, I didn't feel like I had any experience, which I didn't. Um, but I leveraged the experience of others.
Not only that, I mean, there's if you're struggling to find content, and maybe you can only post so many times about your personal journey, there's so much content out there already, by other professionals in the industry.
You know
You
what?
know,
I was just going to say that that was another thing I did when I was struggling for content was, if you put out a post that said the top 5 tips for whatever, maybe I make a post that says, hey, I read Erik's post about this, and I really wanted to talk about number 3 because this is a
Yes.
great point. And not only does it help promote you, it's content for me.
Yeah, 100%. There are people out there who really take advantage of other people's content, like the big ones like Grant Cardone or Gary Vee, and then they shoot holes into their theories, and that's their content, right? They focus on someone else's and they say, "Hey, here's my perspective, and here's why it doesn't work for me," and then people want to watch that as well.
Mhm.
They want to see the counter to the Gary Vees and the Grant.
Sure, sure. That's great stuff. I mean, a lot of actionable items just in the last couple minutes.
yeah.
Yeah, one thing I want to add to that though is if you're concerned with what type of content you're going to put out there, or you're not confident in your delivery, I say have an outline in your mind, write it down. It could be very simple. It could be very simple, like how to find deals on the MLS, or how to find how to analyze a fix and flip, whatever it is you're doing that you're teaching yourself. Just put it out there on Facebook Live because it's the quickest and easiest way, low barrier to entry, doesn't cost you a thing. All you have to do is hold the phone in front of you and have a conversation with people in your network and people who are following you. And don't be overly concerned with being perfect, and don't be overly concerned with how you look, right? Just be concerned with being consistent and short with your message. Less than 2-3 minutes is perfect. People don't want to listen to a whole dissertation on. So be very, and if you need to do a dry run, do a dry run. Just record yourself on your phone and then watch it back. But don't get caught in the analysis by paralysis thing. Just do it and then get comfortable with it. And as you get more and more comfortable with it, you'll notice you get better at it.
Would you say that aside from not having ideas for content, which we already addressed, would you say that just being camera shy or not wanting to put yourself out there is the other biggest barrier that people have to get over?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, hey, it's not for everyone, right? Personal branding is not for everyone, and getting in front of the room, in front of a camera is not for everyone. So what I found works is surrounding yourself with people who are good at that. So I have people in my network and people who are business partners who aren't that great at that, right? So they leverage me for that, right? They align themselves with people who are good at that and want to do that. So that's the best way. And then you can maybe you're the one that puts the content together for them. Maybe you're the one that schedules the stuff for them, and then you together are a force, right? Because usually someone who's really good at that stuff, they're not so great with scheduling and not so
Right.
great with the left brain stuff.
Right.
Yeah. There's so many ways that you can leverage social media as a tool, and I'm highlighting the fact that it is a tool and it's not something that people should use for social reasons and going down the rabbit hole and Game of Thrones theories and hating on people. It's really just a tool. Go in, go out, provide content and value to people, and get out.
And if you are a little bit, camera shy or whatever, starting a blog and posting your blog into, relevant groups and starting discussions about that can almost be just as effective.
I love that. So yeah, not to get into the weeds about it, but LinkedIn is a perfect platform for you to become a thought leader, right? And to leverage yourself and to position yourself as a thought leader by blogging. And LinkedIn loves people who put content up on their long form content, like writing articles
Mm-hmm.
and creating a page for your business and just sharing articles and writing articles. I know so many people that have so much success at that, and it's really elevated their brand to the point where they start to lead conferences and they start to become public speakers because of the content that they're putting out on LinkedIn. So yeah, highly recommend using LinkedIn if you are that type of person that just wants to be behind the scenes.
I know Gary Vee's been really big on LinkedIn lately, so that's great. So I guess, Erik, in closing, can you tell us a little bit about SJ how people can get involved? And then even more importantly, if somebody wants to take this personal branding to the next level, how can they get in touch with you and start working with you?
Yeah, so easy. Show up to the meetings, right? Because we have a big one in Cherry Hill every third Tuesday of the month. And then we have another one in Princeton, New Jersey, Hyatt Regency in Princeton on every third Thursday of the month. So come out to those two meetings. Sometimes we'll have a main speaker who will do both events. I would, a lot of people say, oh, well, I came to the Cherry Hill meeting, so I don't need to. No, there are different people. There are literally 100 different people coming to the other meeting. So it's really also not just about the content, but it's about the networking, right? For me, that's the biggest piece of it. So if you come to the Princeton meeting, especially, and if you come to Cherry Hill, we have a live podcast in Cherry Hill, which the beautiful Barbara Freund is the host of, and she will interview you. So if you come in and you want to promote your business, or you want to promote yourselves, you guys are really good at that, showing up and being a part of that show. I highly recommend coming to Cherry Hill and being interviewed on that. And then when you come out to Princeton, we leveled it up by being on the move. So if you're a business affiliate at a table, and oftentimes I notice, people get tethered to their table because they don't have a business partner that can man, the ship while they go on the interview at the podcast. So we come to you. So now we actually, lights, cameras, and action right comes to you, and we tell your story, and we interview you live on Facebook, and we share it to our 900 members. So I highly recommend you come out to our meetings. We have a ton of subgroups as well. So just go out onto sjria.org, look at our calendar, and we have like 10 to 12 meetings per month. So there's going to be something there. There's going to be some flavor for you to get a taste of what it is we do.
And can you tell us a little bit about just real quick the on-air brands that you have, and almost how important is it to almost create an extension of yourself? Like it's not Erik Cabral brands, it's you created on-air brands almost as own separate entity.
Yeah, so what it is that we've gotten really good at is interviewing people and having conversations and giving people the megaphone to broadcast your brand. So what we do is podcasts where we create podcasts from scratch. So if you have an idea, germ of an idea that you want for a show, reach out to us onairbrands.com, and we'll help you realize that vision, right? So we'll create podcasts for you. And here's the beauty of podcasts. So I constantly say this so people get the gravity of how powerful it is. Podcasts today are what websites were in the 90s. So everybody, used business cards, flyers, in the 70s, 80s. And then all of a sudden websites came out and they realized, oh my God, I need to be online. I need to put my business online so everybody around the world can see it. That is now podcast. Everybody wants one because they realize how powerful a tool this is for your marketing platform. So you can create a podcast. And I'll tell you from personal experience, what has happened is I've had the opportunity to reach out to people way bigger than me, right? So, interviewing them and asking them their story and their journey. And 99% of the people that I asked to be on my show say yes. So I've had big names, like Randy Zuckerberg, Robert Kiyosaki, people who have come on my show who now have become friends, right? So not only have they been interviewed, so now we continue the conversation. So how can you do that in another platform other than podcasts? You can't.
It's great.
So that's how we've been growing, and we do that for others. And then what I've seen clients doing with us now is amazing. So it becomes a podcast, podcasts become meetings, meetings become conferences, conferences become educational material. It just flourishes. It becomes this massive brand. We literally have just booked one of our clients for 2020 in April. 2,000 people we're expecting at this conference. We haven't even launched the podcast officially yet. So that's what a podcast could do for you if you want to leverage it for for everything that it can provide. It's amazing. It's really
And all those ancillary things that you mentioned, they all feed each other, right? So once you start it's like a self-fulfilling thing.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
exactly. And we figured out a system that's amazing, like podcasts, and then we promote the podcast through social media, and then the social media becomes live streaming events. It's just this thing. It's really just it's exploding. It's exploding.
Are you able to say what the event is, or is it still in the works?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so one of the brands that we're launching is called Real Estate Hackers. So my buddy Chad Gallagher, who is the CEO and founder of Slate House Group, manages over 3,000 units. Big plug, and shout out to Chad if you're listening. But yeah, he launched a Real Estate Hackers podcast with us. We're pushing that out this week, early next, and then he rebranded his meetings to be called Real Estate Hacker Meetups. So now they're called Real Estate Hacker Meetups, and then now we've booked in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, a 2,000 capacity venue for the Real Estate Hackers Conference. And
Awesome.
we're putting up the website, and yeah, it's just going to be massive. So now we're going to do that for Entrepreneur Circle and all our other brands, where it's going to follow that same path. We're creating the blueprint for success in starting with podcasts.
And if somebody, and they should, if they want to take their business to the next level with you doing these things, how do they get in touch with you on that stuff?
Yeah, just reach out to Erik, Erik, at onairbrands.com or info@onairbrands.com, or just go to our website, and yeah, we'll have that conversation. If you have a marketing budget that will allow for, podcast creation, social media marketing, and then eventually live streaming, yeah, we'll tell you all it is we do, and it's unique. I don't see anyone else doing it the way we're doing it. So yeah.
That's great. And then maybe as a little accountability exercise for us personally, we'd love to talk to you in another 6 or 8 months, maybe on your podcast. And
Yeah.
I want to show you what we've been doing, because I'm going to use this as it's on video now, so I have to, right? So we'll be putting out lots of content, and hopefully we could talk about it a little bit in the future. But
Yeah.
thank you so much for doing the show, and
My pleasure.
so many actionable items on there. We really appreciate it.
Anytime, guys.
Thanks. Take care.
All right, have a good weekend.